Hi folks, and welcome back to the basement. Unfortunately, this week we won't have our host, colleague, and all-around pal, Dylan Reed, with us. He's in the Mojave Desert, tracking a hot tip on a crash-landed UAP. You'll know as soon as we do. We'll keep you posted. But until then, we won't have him to show us around the nooks and crannies and crevices of the basement. But never fear, we planned for such an occasion. You see, we built a special subsection of the basement, an annex, if you will. It's a trapdoor. And in just such an event, we will go down the trapdoor. Now, it's not for our enemies, but for our friends and our fellow listeners and viewers. So welcome you, welcome I, welcome all of us down the trapdoor and our first edition of the Dylan and Joe Basement Podcast, Trapdoor! All right, folks. In this first edition of Trapdoor, the subject matter is Halley's Comet. You heard me right. Halley, not Haley. We're not talking about Haley Joel Osment. None of that, I see dead people. Well, that comes later. It was named after Edmund Halley, who discovered it in 1682. Well, discovered it in the way like Columbus discovered America, as in it had already been there for thousands and thousands of years, and he wasn't even the first one to see it. When Halley saw that bright light with a tail like a kite shining in the night sky, he saw a comet, or an asteroid. There's a difference, right? But it's only slight. An asteroid is a hunk of rock and metal that soars about our solar system. A comet is just an asteroid with a bit more ice and dust that gives it its brilliant tail as it flies across our night sky. In fact, there's about 1.5 million of them orbiting our sun right now in between Jupiter and Mars. But it is not from that asteroid belt that our comet hails. Halley's Comet comes from beyond the orbit of Pluto. There is a cloud of metal and rock about 8 billion strong, called the Oort cloud. Some of those asteroids are even the size of Pluto. It is from there that we find the birthplace of Halley's Comet. Every once in a blue moon, these asteroids bump into their neighbor and they're sent soaring deep into space. And even more rarely, they cross a particular section of space that's visible from the eyes of people on Earth. It was in 1682 when Edmund saw the comet, but it wouldn't be till 23 years later that he realized he was not the first to see this particular comet, or the second, third, fourth, even 50th. This comet had been orbiting our sun for more than 20,000 years. The star of our tale today was heralded as far back as 240 BC in Mesopotamia. Visions of a shooting star with a dazzling tail. 76 years later, the same celestial body was seen in Babylon and China at the same time. You see, to them, it wasn't a beautiful vision of outer space. It was a dark omen. Death and doom were at your doorstep. To the peoples of our past, comets passing overhead weren't a beautiful spectacle to behold. They were a vision of a dark future. From crop failures to the fall of empires, the deaths of kings and queens, and even signifying the Norman invasion of the very country that Edmund Halley was from. Comets meant bad news in the past history of humanity, and that type of superstition didn't go away in the 1600s. Halley never did get to see his comet return, but return it did, 76 years later, as predicted, and with it came a whole new wave of superstition. Almost as if humanity's collective memory is deleted every time the comet passes, and we have to find new reasons why it's here and why to fear it's coming. 76 years after that is the birth of Mark Twain, American author. 76 years following is his death. Coincidence? You tell me. Let's buy in to the comet's curse. In the same year Mark Twain dies in 1910, the superstitions come back again. Many people believe that the comet's tail is trailing cyanogen, a gas that's going to impregnate Earth's atmosphere and suffocate every human being to death. Gas masks start selling out like hotcakes, and some particularly shrewd con men start selling comet pills, sugar tablets you can take on your tongue that'll save you from the toxic trail of the comet, saving your own life. Of course, no one suffocated to death, and luckily no one ran out of comet pills before it arrived. It simply passed overhead as it ever did, as beautiful, as mundane as it ever was. So people set their sights on the future. 1986 would be the next time Halley's Comet would pass over our skies, and people were as excited as ever, notified in advance, months, even years beforehand. Now we had national television and media at a peak. People were excited for the return of Halley's Comet. Whether or not that meant good or bad omens is for the world to decide. And as it passed over many days through, it was relatively far away as it had been in the past. And it was kind of a downer, kind of a bummer. All the pomp and circumstance, all the doom and gloom and glory that had been seen in the past of the comet slowly passed overhead, just like humans have seen it in the past. And many folks wondered what all the fuss was about. That was the comet? I'll never see it again. My kids might see it, but what's all the hubbub? But comets will return to our night sky, and with them the superstition does follow. Only 10 years later, another comet predicted to arrive did that very thing. The Hale-Bopp comet. Yes, I'm not pronouncing that the wrong way, and I'm not talking about Forrest Gump's kid joining a 90s pop trio. A year earlier, in 1995, a comet had been observed that was going to pass Earth by scientists in two separate locations, Alan Hale and Thomas Bopp, Hale-Bopp. Edmund Halley, Halley's Comet, Hale-Bopp, Thomas Bopp, Adam Hale. I mean, scientists, just get your shit together. How can you expect us to learn any of this crap if you don't figure it out? I mean, Hale-Bopp, Halley, Holly, a wop bop, a loo bop, a wop bamboo. I mean, a year later, as the Hale-Bopp comet passed over the skies of Earth, the superstition came with it. 39 men and women of the cult called Heaven's Gate, decades strong, put on their tracksuits, strapped on a fresh pair of Reeboks, and drank a concoction of barbiturates, swallowing the proverbial Kool-Aid. They made sure to strap plastic bags to their head to make sure their bodies died, so their souls would be taken up and given to the aliens that rode alongside the Hale-Bopp comet, and they could go off into the stars in perpetuity. Halley's Comet will make its next lap past Earth in the year 2061. But never fear. This mass of ice and dust started its journey well before humanity ever discovered fire, and it will continue on well after you're gone. So my suggestion? Grab your cleanest pair of Reeboks, a glass of a drink you enjoy, and look up at the stars. It might be your only chance to see it. The Milky Way galaxy isn't such a bad place to live. In fact, I can't imagine living anywhere else. But to them, it wasn't a beautiful vision of the night sky. It was a dark omen. baby.